I want to talk now about the concept of conditional access policies. Now, conditional access policies is a feature that is able to sort of connect all the different detection signals that Azure has, and based on some conditions that you can set, these conditional access policies can decide whether or not they're just going to completely block the user and device from connecting, or if they're going to challenge the user in some way, perhaps by forcing multi-factor authentication or something like that to kick in. All right, so let's take a look at what we're talking about here. Here we are on portal.azure.com. We're going to click on the menu button and we're going to go down to Azure Active Directory. From there, we're going to go down to the security blade, and you'll see a blade called conditional access. We're going to go ahead and click on that, and then we're going to click to create a new policy. Okay, now maybe this is the scenario. Okay, imagine we have a situation where we have some sales users that maybe work from home in our environment, and it's been reported that some of these sales users are using an older email client that uses something called ActiveSync. And this is seen as a security risk for us, and maybe we would like to either block that, or perhaps maybe we want to enact multi-factor authentication or something along those lines. All right, so this is an email problem. We have some sales users that are using an older legacy application that uses ActiveSync, like some old version of Outlook or something, and we want to, or mobile Outlook, we want to just block them, or we want to challenge them with multi-factor authentication. All right, so I'm going to call this sales ActiveSync policy. All right, and then from there we're going to go down to users, and from there we'll say include only the selected users. So we'll say the selected users are going to be the sales group. Okay, so there is our sales group. We'll select sales. All right, and so then we've got a few options. We could say cloud apps, based on maybe if the users are using specific cloud apps. I could say all, or I could select apps. In this case, you could go through and you could select what apps you want. Now, in this case, with me, I am not actually the ActiveSync and all that is a legacy app, so it's not really going to be seen as a cloud app. But if this policy was going to affect some of the newer style cloud apps like Office 365 and all that, you could select that particular app, and this policy would only be in effect if a user was using that specific app. Okay, but I am not going to select any there. Then we're going to go down here to conditions, and you have user risk. This would be if the user was seen as a risk. So this ties in with what's called Azure Active Directory Identity Protection, and it would be detected if the user was detected as a risk, low, medium, or high, and also if the user was detected to be a sign-in risk. Perhaps Azure has suspected that this user's account's password has been stolen by somebody, and you could have low, medium, or high, and it would base a threat level. So if you selected either of these, this policy would only take effect if the user was currently seen as a low, medium, or high, either sign-in risk or user risk. Okay, and this is not really the lecture. We talk a lot about Azure Identity Protection right now, but that's what those are. All right, this ties in with Azure Active Directory Identity Protection. So we'll go down here to device platforms. This would be if we wanted it to be a specific platform. All right, and maybe this is going to be it is only Windows devices that we've had this issue with, so we'll go with that. We'll say Windows. All right, so then from there, locations would be like particular subnets. You could actually create what are called locations in Azure, and maybe like a particular TCP/IP subnet. You could select that there. Then we have client apps. All right, so this is the one we're actually looking for here. We would say yes, and so you have modern authentication apps. The problem isn't with modern authentication apps; it's with this ActiveSync client. So this is a legacy style email client that can have that could be seen as a security risk, and maybe we want to either block it or enact multi-factor authentication. So we're going to select that. We've got a new feature down here: filter devices, filter for devices. You can actually be a little bit more specific You can actually select properties of the device like device ID, device name, things like that. You could specify values, but I'm not going to do that in this case. All right. So from there, we go down here to grant. This is going to specify whether or not we're going to grant or block. So if I wanted to, I could just simply say block, right? I could also say grant, and then if I wanted to say, okay, we're going to grant access to these legacy, perhaps maybe we have no choice, maybe we absolutely have to have some of these legacy devices using this old ActiveSync client, but we're going to require MFA, okay, if we want to. Or again, we could just say block if we wanted to. You can also do some other things here. Require device to be marked as compliant, so it also have to meet compliance of the company. Require hybrid. If you had a hybrid environment between an on-premise domain, require approved clients. You'd have a list of approved clients there. You got require app protection policies if you wanted to implement that with the help of Intune. Require a password change. Marketing promo. This is a newer little feature they've got. You require all the selected ones, or you could require one of the selected ones. So in my case, I'm just going to go with this top one. I'm going to hit select. And you've also got this new session feature over here, which we don't really need in this case, but they tell you to control access based on session controls. You can enable a limited experience with specific cloud apps. We're not really doing cloud apps in this case, but you can utilize these little features as well. All right. So at that point, if I want to return this on, I can go ahead and just turn it on. I can have it report only, turn on, or turn off. I'm going to say turn on. Click create, and I've now officially implemented my sales ActiveSync policy. So that is what a conditional access policy would do for you. This is only going to affect the people in the sales group. It would not affect anybody else, and they would have to be using an ActiveSync based client, those older email based clients, for this policy to affect them. And if that was the case, it would force them to use MFA. And if they couldn't use multi-factor authentication and they couldn't authenticate through multi-factor authentication, well, it would just not let them in. They would not be able to utilize, they wouldn't be able to check their email. So this would, this just adds that additional layer of protection, forcing them to use MFA. Again, I could go in there and set it to block if I wanted to. All right. But that's the idea of a conditional access policy. It's a great way to sort of utilize a lot of the different signals that Azure AD is using to detect threats and things like that, and then decide whether or not we're going to block or we're going to allow the user based on certain criteria.